Hi, can you hear me? I guess yes. So before the talk, team came to me and he asked me, "So what is the talk actually about?" And that's when I got a bit scared. I was like, "What is the talk actually about?" Yeah, because then I thought, "What if it's too obvious? What if you all know about this?" So let's see. I mean, at the worst case, you're gonna have 15 nice minutes, and I'm gonna be on time, unlike him. So wait, which reminds me, I should set the timer actually. And go. Okay, so to explain to you a bit of background how this talk was born, now that I was here and I saw the design of list, I was like, oh my god, I could have talked about infrastructure and I don't know, like awesome topics, workflows. I'm not very good at it. But instead I chose this because he caught me at the moment that I just finished hiring a third designer to my team. 3 in a year. I know it might not be big for big companies, a lot for big companies, but I'm in a startup, so for us it was huge. And of course, in previous jobs, I also did hiring. So with this recent three-person hiring, I interviewed a lot of designers, and I started seeing patterns, or I started just noticing funny little anecdotes, and so I started like putting them down. And at first, it was gonna be talk for designers who are looking for a job, which would make a lot of sense. But then he said, no, 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 DesignOps. I kind of switched it around, flipped it around. So if you're all guys super senior, it might be boring to you, but bear with me. Anyway, so this is me. My name is Alina. This is me doing yoga in Vondel Park on my way to Dekmantel's Electronic Music Festival, which kind of sums up my interests in one sentence. And this is companies I worked for. So currently I work with this unknown logo. It's called Price Hubble. It's a prop tech startup, and we use Figma. Um, right. So who of you has ever done hiring? Okay, a few haven't. That's good. Who of you has done hiring in the last month? Okay, good. So you'll be bored. Anyway, but of course, every case is individual, and I kind of drew a little timeline of how things go. So at first, there's the sourcing, which is when you kind of maybe your hiring manager, they dip into the pool of people out there, they ask for referrals, they search on social media and other sources. So then there's some kind of source pool, if you may present it, and that's when there's the first interview. It might not necessarily be you, it might be somebody else from your team, and then there might be a second and a third interview. And I think if you are a designer on a team who gets a new designer, eventually you would get to this point, to this touch point. And then after that, when all the stakeholders, all these round of designers, they agree that this is a pass, then there is a design challenge, and finally there is a presentation, right? I mean, this is a super simple user journey for a designer looking for a job, and basically, yeah, to bring a little bit of interesting math to this topic, I'm kind of proposing that there could be like a point system to every step of this process. And I mean, I did mine, and it's like on a 10-year-old school kids level. But feel free to create yours. It's mostly what I'm trying to say is that for every step of this process, you can get like you just can make a list, and then you can put points to if they scored or they didn't score, and then you just sum it up. But I'll come to this later. So we start with sourcing. This is pretty much my best slide because it's fun and it has no words. This is how sourcing looks like. You need to find Wally. I hope everybody knows this reference, otherwise, no, it's not going to be funny. Yeah, so you need to find Wally, right? Finding Wally is really, really hard. And first, of course, Wally send you CVs and portfolios because that's what we design portfolios, right? So apart from that, I think that huh? I never found it on that picture, by the way. I also had a bit of piece here to put in the frame. So apart from that, before we even start with actually evaluating a candidate, I think that this is I made this list. This is a list for a perfect designer checklist, and to me, a perfect designer has these qualities. So they're curious and able to ask the right questions. They have analytical mindset. They take feedback well. They have basic understanding of technology, and they have high empathy. And of course, when you're just sourcing, I think neither of these qualities are really shiny. So we can take this in the back of this, in the end of this talk, when we come back to that. But when you're sourcing, you're already kind of taking these things into the consideration, I think. So I mentioned CV and portfolio. So people send you CV, right? So To me, SCV as the ultimate, I love this word, ultimate test for good AI skills or UX skills, if you might, or even UI skills, But I think every designer, be it even a visual or a UI designer, they must understand how to explain things to another person nicely. So, because especially the recruiters are often non-tech people, so the CV, I prefer one pagers, by the way. I think that if you would Google hiring tips for Google, they also recommend that. So, anyway, so to me, this I think if you want to catch somebody's interest, it should fit on one page, okay? Because yeah, that's you don't lose attention span, and you can put the really important thing, which really matters. Then, for example, I'm not a big fan when I see CVs like that. They start listing like hundreds of tools they know. I mean, everybody can learn a tool and Figma or Sketch. In the end of the day, if you know one, you learn the other one in 2 hours, right? So I discard this. To me, what the two most important thing which matters is a summary about themselves, and especially how it's applicant for the job, and what are their strengths and weaknesses, maybe in the same sentence or nice little designy block near it, and actual achievements on the job. Again, I heard that in Switzerland, education matters. Once Dario told it to me. I never personally look at it. I of course check the work experience, but then I don't mind the position. But what I'm actually looking for is always how did this candidate change the life of this company? Like what is the thing which was not there before this person came there? So basically, to sum it all up, for me, if it's scannable, if it has these two last things, we can assign 3 points to this on my personal checklist. So then there's the portfolio. I guess this is also kind of straightforward. Again, there is of course the difference for what kind of position they're applying for. Again, it has to be applicable to the position. So sometimes I got portfolios for UI designer with like logos and brochures, which is nice, but I don't really see their UI skills at all. So I discard them and I check the next one. And of course, for like somebody who's a product designer, AI or UX, it makes more sense to do case studies. And it's always a bit hard because, again, as designers or people with good taste, right, we kind of tend to notice like the beauty of the CV. This is where you really have to like screw this thing in your head and say, okay, it may be it's readable, but it might not be beautiful. You must still give this a chance because if the content is interesting, like for the case studies, like if they explain the process in detail and you really see how things like add up, then you definitely should give this person a chance. I mean, unless they're applying for a UI designer position, right? So as I mentioned, process again, I would bring this back to UI designers as well. I think it's important for them as well because you still can explain how you did things, how you reached there, and who you collaborated with, which actually also brings us to contribution. Also, I got a lot of CVs with awesome projects, but when you ask the person, so what did you do? It was like that one button there, which is fine, but it would be nice to know this beforehand. So it's nice to, when you on the portfolio, you see contribution of what the person actually did. And then, of course, the connection to the CV. This already brought before. Basically, yeah, if you're applying for a product designer, then you have to explain in your portfolio how it is connected to the product design, the whole steps. Or if you're a service designer, then also add touch points which normally are not in our product design process. So if you do these things correctly, we can give 3 points. Right. Another important things which I or as a recruiter to look at when you source are this. So asking for a demo of the tool. Again, this depends if this is not a website or like a B2C, but if it's a B2B especially, and sometimes the access is closed. So would they ask for that because that kind of shows interest in the company, and plus I think then yeah then they're interested in the company. So for me it's a plus point, right? And then the question, why do they want to change? Again, probably the recruiting person asked that. But I actually once, like just recently, got an answer that they want to change for money, and that's it, which is fine. I'm not denying that we all need good salaries, but I'm pretty sure nobody wants to work with just manager in person. There's just no fun, right? And then what I always do, Google them. I stalk them, Instagram, Facebook. I do that. I don't know if it's for everybody, but I like getting like an impression of a person by this. And basically, when I see weird, racist, homophobic, misogynist shit, for me it's basically -5. There's the points. So I mean, this basically means you don't have to continue in the process. I think. Sorry, I'm not putting microphone to my mouth, but I have a really loud voice. Um, Okay, so then comes the interview part. And again, a few things keep in mind when it happens. So, are they on time for the call? I interviewed an Italian guy, no offense completely, but he was 7 minutes late, which I think is a lot. He did show up, but he didn't even apologize. So he's like, oh, no, 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 hello. So yeah, but for me, I'm sorry. For me, this is a big no-no. Okay, and the second one, do they sound very arrogant and full on themselves? And as designers, I think we all can relate a little bit, no? And like, oh, I'm so awesome. I actually had that. That was in Barcelona. We were hiring, and no names, of course, but the guy was like, yeah, and all my friends, the Silicon Valley, like the big shots, like the famous designers, like Mike Monteiro or whatever. And we're like, well, how do you know these people? He's like 20, like, he's like, well, I met them at conferences. I was like, okay, yeah, best buddy for sure. So, kind of, I mean, apart from that, you could feel that he was full of himself, not a good thing. Nobody wants to work with that person. Then does it sound they're reading off a script? Again, happened 1 month ago. So the girl did really well in the beginning until we started noticing something weird. Like her eyes are like fixed, and then she's like, she's talking to us, but when she's answering, she's like moving her eyes. We're like, okay, is she like reading from somewhere? And then when we started asking her questions, which are not like, so please explain about yourself, she started suddenly getting lost, and her English worsened by far. And we're like, okay, I think she actually was reading from a script when she was presenting herself. So another thing to maybe notice. And the very important thing, that's why the two fingers, and I mentioned this previously, is to me it's really, really important. How much are they asking about the company, team setup, processes? I get so many cases, especially from junior designers. They finish talking, and then you go, oh, so you don't have any questions to ask? And they're like, no, no, thank you, that's it. And you're like, okay, but do they even want to work here? So, so for me, I think it's really important when people are interested in the company. Plus, they care where they end up. So I think it's good. Some points, some minus points. And of course, apart from that, personality is just as important as skills, right? Um, so I would give that another point for sure. I think we all have awesome personalities. Anyway, so then comes the design challenge. Okay, that's actually quite an important part, right? That's when the decision peak is very close. So again, a few things which you see go wrong so many times. So to me, these are the important things to have in every design presentation, be it UI or UX or anything. So the first would be, did they create a proper presentation document? I think it just makes such a much better such much better impression when there is a structured PDF with steps and the process and how they did it, and only in the middle they get to their prototype. But basically, there is a reasoning. I mean, I'm not gonna mention like design thinking or double diamond, like, but it's personas you name it, So, but actually include the intro to all these things they're gonna show to you, and then okay, maybe this should have been up, but on the same topic, did they have conclusions to their exercise? That's also very important. Another thing I think is important is, did they make assumptions? Because as we all probably know, the design exercises are sometimes quite raw, and there is some information missing, or maybe if you're a good designer, you actually find faults in the exercise. So unless they got you back with questions, but did they make assumptions when they created their design? So I think that also makes very good impression on always. And then the last one, also very important, is that could they come up with an impromptu answer? Because I mean, let's face it, we all are wrong, and we're wrong in our designs a lot. So I think an important quality for a designer is to acknowledge that, receive feedback, and give, in this case, alternative answer. And some I've had cases that actually maybe like you see that this interaction real, like, oh, seriously, you have like, I don't know, drop down for two choices or something like that. And then, but you ask them, yeah, but how would you do this differently? And then if they think and give you even a better answer, that always, I think, leaves a much better impression. And I think that's the person you're looking for. So some more points. So, and a little extra, which very few people do, is asking feedback for their interview. So, yeah, either on the spot or contacting. I think that's important because, again, as designers, especially, I think it's so important that we always iterate not just on our designs but on ourselves. So, and in the interview process, in the end, is the workflow, user journey, right? So it's important to improve it all the time. So for me, it's nice when they ask for feedback. Fun point. And then, well, so you've had all your stages of, well, process. Now comes the last one. You have to choose somebody, and it's easy if you have just one person, but what if you have several? So again, I would ask you to go again to the checklist we started with. So now that you've actually acquainted yourself with the person a bit more, you probably can answer these questions. And again, I'm just gonna make a maybe self-understood thing about technology. I think even UI designers, if you work in tech, it's nice to understand at least what is a database, what is, I don't know, cloud, etc. So again, you can grant more points at the choosing stage. And then basically, not so impressive slide, but as I mentioned previously, so you gathered points at each stages, but please adapt this to your needs as you want. And then you actually have these points, and then you can compare candidate to candidate based on how many points they have. Plus, of course, it's always nice to sync with what others think, and yeah, share arguments, always like argumented opinions. So of course make notes throughout all this process to be able to argument with these other stakeholders in the end. And last but not the least, and it's so important, and maybe even the most important of it all, is that you have a good gut feeling about that person. I think that, yeah, I think that the gut, but again, we spoke about arrogancy, so I think then the gut feeling is kind of covered already. But yeah, I mean, apart from all these points and thinking, how do you feel about this person? Like, did you see them as your next teammate? Yeah, I guess that's not really rocket science. And that's it. I only have one social media, although of course I could speak about my project. No, sorry. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Sorry. Thank you so much. It was interesting. The question was, what is a proper presentation, and what did I mean by it, or something like that. So yeah, well, I don't know, a PDF, a keynote, a PowerPoint, anything which helps you present information to other people in an efficient way. I don't know. Does that help? Or? Well, I don't know. Is it an on-site interview? I guess digital helps because the prototype is normally digital, so you kind of embed it there. But I mean, if it's an on-site interview and they bring papers, yeah, and digital helps because you can actually show it to everyone, right? Because if it's one-on-one, maybe paper, but digital works when there's more than one person involved, I think. So in concretely in this company where we were only four and two of us are remote, so these steps were all remote and digital. But in the previous experience, it's normally the design presentation which is on site, and all the previous steps are can be remote. Yeah. So yeah, I would say design challenge and presentation. Presentation of the design challenge is on site, and before that, I think can be remote. Sometimes, well, in some companies we did on-site design challenge presentation, so like on the spot, right? I think it actually works really well because it's my biggest kind of doubt. Like, is it fair to make people spend their Sunday all day to work on something they might not even get, like, or don't want or whatever? But yeah, so I think the on-spot design challenges are really great, but it's just that not everybody can afford them because of time. Yeah. So do you understand the question correctly? How do you communicate to the candidates who did not pass that they did not pass? I have to say it's not everywhere I worked. It's a standard email, better a call actually. Call works, I think, better than the email, but sometimes it's more on the recruiter. So sometimes if I really made like a personal connection and it ended here, but sorry, But then, but then the checkpoint list did not really add up. Like there were some other faulty things. Well, I thought they wouldn't get to that stage, I guess. But okay, it has happened that you really like somebody, but hey, you have another candidate which is better, but they still did the presentation. Yeah, sometimes I mean, I had cases that I wrote them previous email just saying the truth. I think the truth is always the best. That there is somebody who's better, but hey, this is and maybe actually giving feedback without requesting is also great. This gives a positive emotion to the candidate, right? When you actually, and the typical feedback, like when you first say good things and then you list the bad things. So I think that those kind of emails or calls work good. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Okay. Right. Maybe you shouldn't work there. I think you shouldn't work there, seriously. Hmm. Yeah. Well, you shouldn't be. They give you this time, like they say, complete the design challenge in 4 hours. And you should keep it because they want to see how much you can do in 4 hours. I mean, I'm sorry, don't, I do math, I want to do it properly because I only draw things nicely. But I would say maybe one in 10, one in 15, maybe. So, yeah. But yeah, then you have to source well as well, 'cause that's a good question. Okay, this is a very good question, and I have the answer because I worked for Xing, and we made user journeys with such a research, and the typical incorporation of an employee designer takes around 3 months. However, in this case, we were a bit in a rush, and I think it was 2 months. Yeah, but it's still quite long. Yeah, it's still quite long. Uh, yeah, yeah. Sourcing, tough. Yeah, I actually really do a checklist, by the way. Mm, the thing is, I think that if a person scored pretty much on every point, you have a good gut feeling. But of course, sometimes, I mean, we're all people. Sometimes it's like a personal connection. I don't know. They mentioned they like David Bowie, and I'm like, oh, David Bowie from Maple Siren. Like, I mean, of course it happens, but I try to be first logical and then emotional. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, mhm. That's that's a really good question. I'm gonna repeat it because it's so good. So, well, really, seriously, and also it gives me time to think. But so the question was, uh, sorry. So how do you hire diverse teams? Because it's best to hire different people to get the optimal result in your design work, and we tend to hire the people we like best. Um, yeah, I guess that's why you have several stakeholders and everybody has an input, I guess, and then you discuss, and I guess other roles have other criteria. So I guess I mean, if we never hire unless everybody is on board. So yeah. That's- Yeah. Yeah. So the question was how to do the sourcing, like from where to find these people. Um, yeah, I think I mentioned the most channels. It's always well. So first of all, normally in the companies it's recruiting manager's person's job, and then it just passes what passed her filter, which is something like decent English, did not seem like a mental person, and like stuff like that. So yeah, which is like really basic checks for it. And well, not, but you know what I mean. She, she, we do have a lot of not such a good talent getting to us still. Um, so the sourcing, yeah. So personal networks, of course. I'm quite recent in Switzerland, so I don't have such a. Right now, I do. Wide the personal network, but I was working for that. But normally, yes. So it's recommendations, it's social media posting, it's headhunting in her case, and yeah, job portals like job cloud. Yay! I'm sorry, it's a very philosophical question. I'm not sure. The question is, what do I do when the right designer should me? Do they like start stalking me, or what do you mean? No, no, but I'm sorry. I still don't understand the question, honestly. No, but please. Ah, yeah. Well, yeah, it's a big topic. Yeah, now we talk a bit company. What we used to call it in company branding. It's basically, yeah, you maintain a good image of your company. You organize meetups, by the way. Um, you're as a like product owner or developer. You go to meetups. You meet people. You talk well about the company. If you have marketing, you invest in marketing. Again, I think these days the most important thing is just to keep a good image on social media and just kind of, I know it's sad, but kind of have work in your life all your life, meaning that even if you're having drinks with your friend at 11 p.m. on Friday, try not to talk shit about your company. I mean, unless they're a very good friend, because people talk and the word spreads. So yeah. Mhm. Yeah, I guess it depends what we're looking for. Again, in previous company, the historical thing, we had something called thought leadership position, meaning that we would, but the company is so huge that you can afford to hire all kinds of designers, and there we would actually strategically hire people who could be thought leaders for us. So yes, but personally, I think this is bullshit. You saw my checklist, right? So no, no, I mean, so the, so the good things are this to me, not if somebody is able to write media marketing.